What truly lies at the very heart of human existence? If life itself were set upon a scale, what would be valuable enough to balance its weight? For most people, the answers come quickly and are easily recognized. Family bonds, love, financial stability, the health and well-being of children. These are admirable and widely accepted pursuits that give meaning to many lives. Yet, beyond the familiar markers of success, there exists another kind of individual, quiet, detached from the noise of society, whose values are measured differently. This is a Sigma male, a figure often misunderstood, who places little importance on conventional trophies of achievement. His guiding principles are not written for public display, but are guarded deep within, engraved in the hidden walls of his inner world. This is not about glorifying recklessness or painting a fascination with danger. Rather, it is an honest reflection on the essentials without which his life would feel empty and void of authenticity. For him, freedom is not a lofty political slogan, but the very air that sustains him. Solitude is not a punishment, but a sanctuary, a place where he replenishes his energy and restores clarity. One quiet, genuine moment of peace within himself holds greater value than years spent collecting status, wealth, or applause. These are not gestures crafted for recognition, but deeply personal commitments, silent vows that form a foundation of his identity and guide his path through life. To the outside world, such priorities may appear unusual, even puzzling, that someone would fight so fiercely to protect something as elusive as silence, independence, or an unspoken vision. Yet, it is precisely this peculiarity that defines his uniqueness. The Sigma male treasures the things that the majority dismiss as unimportant. And in this difference lies a profound reminder for everyone. What is that one essential element in your life that you would never surrender, no matter the cost? Find it, guard it, nurture it with discipline and care. Because it is often these deeply personal, inexplicable treasures that give life its true depth and make it worth living. 1. The sanctity of an unfiltered mind, the unchained consciousness. Imagine a life where every passing thought has to be dressed up for an audience, scrubbed clean, softened, and repackaged in a way that pleases a majority. Such an existence may look harmonious on the surface, but beneath it, there is suffocation, a quiet burial of authenticity. This is a reality most people accept, bending their inner voice to fit social expectations. For the Sigma male, however, this arrangement is unbearable. To him, the freedom to think, to express, and to allow his consciousness to flow unfiltered is not a negotiable privilege, but the very cornerstone of his being. If asked to choose between societal approval and the integrity of his mind, he will gladly take the heat of criticism, mockery, or even isolation over betraying the raw, untamed essence of his thoughts. Daily life offers countless examples of this hidden struggle. Think back to moments when you've held a controversial opinion in your chest, but swallowed it for the sake of convenience. Perhaps you disagreed with the dominant view in a group discussion, or you want to confess an uncomfortable truth, but you chose silence to avoid tension. Multiply this silence over decades, and you have a life muted, flattened, and robbed of vibrancy. This is a prison the Sigma male refuses to inhabit. His mind is alive with wild, unpolished truths. He does not feel compelled to water them down for mass consumption. To him, unfiltered expression is not rebellion. It is authenticity, a refusal to dilute his identity for the comfort of others. Picture him at a gathering where everyone else trades in agreeable, shallow pleasantries. He listens, patient but restless, sipping his drink as if weighing whether honesty is worth the disruption. And then he speaks. His words, calm but sharp, slice through the haze of small talk, jolting the room into uncomfortable clarity. Forks pause midair, glasses stall halfway to lips, and the air grows heavy. He does not speak for attention or shock value. He speaks because he cannot betray his own cognitive integrity. His refusal to cage his thoughts is an act of self-preservation, proof that his spirit remains unshackled. The lesson here is broader than one man's defiance. It challenges us to reflect. How often do we silence our own minds out of fear of judgment? How many truths have we buried, convincing ourselves they were too strange, too risky, or too easily dismissed? The Sigma male reminds us that progress, creativity, and self-discovery are born from unfiltered thought. To live without honoring this principle is not to truly live at all, but merely to drift within the narrow confines of collective approval. Life is too short to edit your spirit into submission. 2. The silent vow. The right to protect the weak when no one is watching. Heroism, in its popular portrayal, is a spectacle. Crowds cheer, headlines praise, medals gleam under lights. But the truest form of courage is quiet, uncelebrated, and often unseen. It lies in the moments when someone steps forward to defend the vulnerable with no reward waiting, no applause ringing in the air. This quiet moral instinct is a defining trait of the Sigma male. For him, the act of protecting those who cannot protect themselves is not about recognition or social credit. It is a sacred duty dictated by an inner compass that refuses to allow injustice to stand unchecked. Consider the everyday cruelty that unfolds unnoticed. A child being taunted by older peers on a playground, a cashier berated by an irate customer, a colleague sidelined in meetings while their ideas are stolen by louder voices. These are scenes most people glance at, then quickly look away from. They calculate the risks, decide it's not their problem, and move on. The Sigma male is incapable of such detachment. For him, silence in the face of cruelty is a betrayal of his own conscience. Even if stepping forward brings ridicule, inconvenience, or hostility, he would rather endure those costs than live with the weight of complicity. His interventions are rarely grandiose. In an office, he may quietly give credit where it is due, subtly undermining the politics of exploitation. On the street, he may step between a victim and their tormentor, not to bask in moral glory, but simply to restore balance. Often, his acts of defense are understated, almost wrapped in humor. He might shrug off questions about why he risked a confrontation with a stranger by saying it was the right thing to do. Besides, their cart was blocking the aisle. Behind this dry wit lies a deeper truth. His actions are grounded not in theatrics, but in principle. This is his silent vow. To protect human dignity, even when the world is not watching, he will put his own safety, comfort, or social standing on the line, rather than abandon the defenseless. In an age where many seek validation before acting, this unrecognized courage sets him apart. The Sigma male proves that true strength is not about dominance or bravado, but about the quiet willingness to stand firm when no one else will. 3. The burden of truth, articulating the unspeakable. There is a particular weight in carrying a truth that no one else dares to speak. Most people bury it, out of politeness, fear of conflict, or sheer self-preservation. Yet the Sigma male feels a deep obligation to voice it, even when it makes him unpopular, even when silence would protect him. For him, truth is not just a principle but a duty, and he cannot comfortably stand by while illusions take root. Take the family table. For instance, everyone knows Uncle Joe has a drinking problem. His words slur, his steps stagger, but the ritual of forced smiles and unspoken agreements keeps the facade alive. In this setting, the Sigma male may calmly remark, "Perhaps Uncle Joe doesn't need another drink." The atmosphere freezes, a hush falls, and discomfort thickens like fog. But his motive is not to embarrass or grandstand. It is simply to pierce the veil of denial. Where others see politeness as virtue, he sees silence as complicity. In professional life, the pattern repeats. A team rallies around a flawed project, riding on the wave of group enthusiasm. While others nod and echo approval, the Sigma male voices the uncomfortable truth. This plan won't survive 6 months unless we address its flaws. Predictably, he is met with resistance, annoyance, or dismissal. Yet when time proves him right, his lonely stand becomes undeniable. He would rather endure temporary unpopularity than watch disaster unfold in silence. This burden of truth defines his courage. He knows lies create temporary comfort, but long-term corrosion. A necessary truth may sting in the moment, but it is the seed of real change and lasting trust. To carry and deliver this burden is costly. It can alienate him, strain relationships, and isolate him. Yet he accepts these costs because the alternative, living among lies, is to him far worse. The Sigma male's willingness to voice the unspeakable is not arrogance but service. He becomes a mirror the world would rather avoid, forcing it to see itself as it is. For the sacred trust guarding the innocence of a child's faith. Among the countless dynamics of human life, few are as pure as the trust of a child. It is unconditional, untouched by calculation or skepticism. A child believes because they feel safe, and in that innocence lies a fragile, irreplaceable treasure. For the Sigma male, this trust is not something to take lightly. It is sacred. When a child places faith in him, he treats it as a solemn duty, one that he will protect with absolute seriousness, even if it demands sacrifice. The simplicity of this trust is profound. A child reaches for his hand before crossing the street, assuming, without doubt, that he will guide them safely. A promise to attend a game or a recital carries the same weight. To break it is not a small disappointment, but a betrayal of a world still unscarred by cynicism. The Sigma male understands this instinctively. If he commits, he will do everything in his power to honor that promise. Not out of obligation, but because failing to do so would feel like a desecration of something holy. Even in play, his devotion shows. Picture him seated at a child's tea party, knees pressed awkwardly under a tiny table, sipping from an empty cup with exaggerated seriousness. To outsiders, it may look comical, but for him, it is sacred participation. He is telling the child, without words, that their world matters, that their imagination and trust are safe in his presence. These small acts of faith-building are, to him, more important than adult seriousness. This commitment is not about sheltering a child from reality, but about giving him a foundation of reliability, a sense that promises can be kept and trust is not always misplaced. In a society where loyalty and integrity are often bent for convenience, his determination to guard a child's faith becomes revolutionary. For the Sigma male, preserving the innocence of that trust is one of the noblest purposes he can serve, a sacred trust he would defend with his life. 5. The untamed vision, the sovereignty of a personal path. The Sigma male's vision for life carries the air of the wild, unmapped, unpredictable, and unapologetically his own. Unlike many who find comfort in ready-made roadmaps laid out by family expectations, societal pressures, or cultural benchmarks, his journey is self-authored. He refuses to be domesticated by conformity or swayed by the applause of the crowd. For him, to follow a script written by someone else, no matter how safe or prestigious, would feel like spiritual suffocation, a slow erosion of his essence. He would rather risk stumbling, failing, or even falling into obscurity in the pursuit of a vision that sets his soul alight than achieve polished success on a path that never belonged to him. Most lives unfold along predictable lines. Degrees pursued because they are practical, jobs accepted because they are secure, relationships and milestones achieved because they fit into a cultural timetable. There is nothing inherently wrong with this pattern, yet the Sigma male instinctively resists it. He refuses to live life as if it were a checklist, moving mechanically from one socially approved accomplishment to the next. For him, authenticity outweighs predictability. Life is not about proving stability to others. It is about writing a story that could not have been written by anyone else. Picture him at a family reunion, where relatives trade updates about career promotions, property purchases, or carefully crafted retirement plans. When asked about his own trajectory, he might reply with a cryptic smile, "I'm deciding between sailing around the world or starting a workshop for antique typewriters." His words may prompt laughter, confusion, or even judgment. Yet, he remains unmoved. He knows the worth of his path is not measured in nods of approval, but in the fire of his own conviction. The beauty and the humor of his choices lies in their audacity. He could walk away from a high-paying job in a corporate tower to cultivate organic vegetables in a remote valley, or abandon financial security to write novels that may never sell. Outsiders may shake their heads, but to him, these decisions are not reckless. They are essential. Even if he fails spectacularly, the failure will be his, forged in the furnace of his own will, and therefore infinitely more meaningful than hollow victories won by following someone else's blueprint. His legacy will never be about how well he fit in, but about the courage it took to shape a life no one else could have imagined. 6. The sanctuary of silence, a code that protects the soul. In a world that thrives on oversharing, where daily lives are dissected into captions and stories for the consumption of strangers, silence is treated as absence, something awkward, empty, or suspect. The Sigma male sees it differently. For him, silence is not emptiness but richness, a reservoir of meaning, memory, and deeply personal truth. His silence is not about secrecy for secrecy's sake, nor a cultivated air of mystery designed to intrigue. It is, instead, a protective code, a sacred boundary that shields his inner world from being cheapened or mishandled by others. Modern culture encourages the broadcasting of every meal, every mood, every thought. But the Sigma male knows instinctively that the most precious truths are diminished the moment they are exposed to an unready or indifferent audience. What remains sacred if everything is spilled into the open? Some experiences, some emotions, and some discoveries belong only to the depths of the self. To betray that boundary by handing them over to the casual curiosity of the world would feel like an act of self-betrayal. Think back to moments when you were pressured to reveal something deeply personal, only to find that the listener could never truly grasp its weight. The telling left you not lighter but emptier, exposed, and misunderstood. This is the Sigma's lifelong awareness. He guards his inner narrative carefully, understanding that his silence is not weakness but wisdom. His most profound experiences remain locked away, unpublished chapters known only to him. At social gatherings, his silence often becomes a source of humorous curiosity. "What are you hiding?" someone might tease, or "Tell us what's really going on in your head." He will deflect with a joke, a smile, or a clever change of subject. People may mistake this for secrecy or aloofness, but in truth, it is discipline. Not every chamber of the soul is a public gallery. His silence is his fortress, an inner sanctuary where he can reflect, heal, and savor victories without interference or dilution. For the Sigma male, silence is not void but presence. It is both armor and refuge, a space that allows him to preserve his wholeness in a world that demands constant disclosure. 7. The raw honesty of solitude, the crucible of the self. There is a rare kind of honesty that only arises when one is utterly alone, stripped of all audiences and roles. This is the honesty the Sigma male seeks in solitude. For him, time alone is not just a break from people, but a sacred crucible where he confronts himself without masks. Solitude is where he processes his failures, dissects his fears, measures his progress, and engages with the raw material of his soul. Without it, he feels drained, unmoored, and lost in the noise of the world. Most people, confronted with quiet, rush to fill it with chatter, entertainment, background noise, or endless scrolling. Silence makes them uneasy because it forces them to confront thoughts they would rather bury. The Sigma male moves in the opposite direction. He needs solitude the way others need air. In his private retreat, whether it is a dimly lit room with a notebook or a quiet evening on a balcony, he immerses himself in thought. Sometimes he journals, capturing the storm of his mind. Sometimes he simply sits still, letting the chaos settle until clarity emerges. What seems like idleness from the outside is, in reality, essential inner labor. This habit often draws teasing from those who misinterpret it. Friends may say, "Why don't you get out more? You're too antisocial." He might respond with dry humor, "I'm in a committed relationship with my couch." Yet behind the joke is a profound truth. His solitude is not a retreat born of fear, but a chosen discipline that strengthens him. It is a workshop where his authenticity is forged, where he strips away pretenses and emerges sharper, steadier, and truer to himself. The raw honesty of solitude is often uncomfortable. It forces him to face what others avoid. But in that discomfort lies his clarity. Unlike those who constantly distract themselves, the Sigma male can return to the world with authenticity intact, able to engage others without being consumed by the falsehoods of performance. His solitude is not escape. It is preparation. It equips him to live in the world without losing himself to it. 8. The fortress within, a moment of unshaken inner peace. There are battles waged in the outer world, against obstacles, competitors, and shifting circumstances. And there are battles waged within, against one's own restlessness, fear, and turmoil. For the Sigma male, the inner battle is the one that matters most. To him, a single moment of unshaken inner peace is more valuable than all the noise, wealth, or recognition the external world can offer. He knows too well the draining chaos of environments steeped in drama, conflict, or relentless busyness. To sacrifice inner tranquility for external gain feels to him like a slow kind of death. He watches the restless world with clarity. People chase opportunities, status, and social engagements, piling their schedules full until exhaustion eats at them. Outwardly, they appear busy, accomplished, even celebrated. Inwardly, they lie awake at night, their minds spinning with anxiety, regrets, and unresolved tensions. The Sigma male rejects this path. He would walk away from a profitable deal, exit an argument he could easily win, or in a toxic relationship if it meant preserving his inner stillness. To him, peace is not passive. It is the fortress he must build and guard with relentless vigilance. Picture him on a park bench, deliberately ignoring the flood of notifications vibrating in his pocket. Around him, others scroll through endless feeds, their attention consumed by digital noise. He, however, chooses stillness. What appears to others as boredom is, to him, victory. He knows the external world will always be chaotic. The real work lies in protecting the calm within. This priority often makes him seem eccentric or even comical to others. He may decline the most popular party of the year, opting instead for a quiet night with a book and a cup of tea. Friends may joke about his grandpa habits, but he smiles unbothered because he knows the truth they don't. Inner calm outlasts any temporary thrill. His choice reflects a deeper wisdom. That strength is not measured by how much chaos one can endure, but by the courage to walk away from entirely in defense of peace. For him, once inner peace is lost, even the brightest external victories turn hollow. True wealth lies in the quiet fortress of the soul, and he will defend it with everything he has. 9. The peace of anonymity, the liberty of being unseen. In a world where visibility is increasingly equated with importance, where every individual is urged to build a personal brand and broadcast their life for validation strangers, the Sigma male stands apart by embracing the opposite. His deepest freedom lies not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. For him, the peace of anonymity, the ability to move through life unseen, unmeasured, and unjudged, is more valuable than any applause or fleeting recognition. He knows from observation that the spotlight, while it may appear warm and welcoming, can scorch the soul, distort identity, and rob a man of his authenticity. By choosing to live outside the mainstream glare, he protects the wholeness of his being. Consider the immense cultural pressure to constantly perform, to share every achievement, post every highlight, and prove one's worth through carefully curated online personas. The Sigma male views this frantic exhibition with quiet disdain. He feels no urge to publish his journey or parade his private victories before an anonymous crowd. In fact, he treasures the liberty that comes with knowing that his life is largely invisible to outsiders. To him, the best and most sacred moments are those shared only between the people present, not cheapened by an endless digital audience. Imagine him at a dinner party. While others arrange plates and glasses for the perfect Instagram capture, he is fully immersed in the laughter, the flavors, and the living moment. His joy does not depend on likes or comments, but grows from within, untainted by outside judgment. His anonymity becomes a shield, preserving the purity of his experience. There is even humor in his aversion to attention. If forced onto a stage to accept recognition, his instinct would be to cut his words short and retreat quickly, muttering something self-effacing like, "Thanks, but please look elsewhere." This is not the awkwardness of shyness, but a deliberate choice. He knows that while the spotlight may feed the ego, it often starves the soul. By guarding his right to remain unseen, he nurtures the inner sanctuary where his creativity, strength, and clarity thrive. For the Sigma male, anonymity is not obscurity, it is liberty. 10. The ground-shaking idea, the defense of a disruptive vision. Human history moves forward not through safe, conforming ideas, but through those that disrupt, unsettle, and challenge the very foundations of what is believed to be true. The Sigma male is instinctively drawn to these ground-shaking visions. If he encounters a concept capable of altering perception or breaking open rigid structures of thought, he will defend it with passion. Even if the rest of the world dismisses him as mad, the record of progress supports this tendency. Revolutionary discoveries, from the roundness of the earth to the printing press, from Einstein's relativity to the digital revolution, began as heresies ridiculed by the mainstream. The Sigma male resonates with the struggle. He would rather risk mockery in defense of a radical idea than comfortably nod along with the safety of the herd. To him, such ideas are sacred flames that must be sheltered from the winds of conformity. Picture him in a corporate meeting where everyone nods in agreement over a safe, predictable plan. After listening quietly, He breaks a consensus with a disruptive proposal that rattles assumptions. The room falls into uneasy silence. Someone mutters, "That's too risky," while another insists, "That's not how we do things." He remains unfazed. He knows that true change never comes wrapped in comfort. The humor in his persistence lies in his stubborn dedication. He is a man tinkering in his garage for years on a project dismissed as foolish, a new engine design, a radical software model, or a philosophical manuscript. When challenged, he might grin and say, "If you think it's impossible, that's exactly why I must try." His commitment is not ego-driven but purpose-driven. He understands that safety breeds stagnation, and civilization only moves forward when someone dares to shake the ground beneath its feet. For the Sigma male, protecting a disruptive vision is not just a choice. It is a mission. 11. The unspoken promise. The covenant with the self. Among the many promises a person makes in life, the most sacred are not those sworn to others, but those whispered privately to oneself. For the Sigma male, these inner vows form the invisible architecture of his character. They are his personal code, non-negotiable commitments that he will bend his entire life around in order to uphold. To break them would feel like an act of deep betrayal, worse than any public failure, for it would mean abandoning the trust he has built with himself. Think of a moment when you resolved quietly to change something, to exercise regularly, to quit a dead-end job, to finally write the story inside you, and then abandoned it. The sting of that self-betrayal lingers long after. The Sigma male is hyper-aware of this weight. He is constantly in conversation with his past and future selves, unwilling to let either down. His unspoken promises might look ordinary to others. To never live on borrowed money, to finish what he starts, to call his parents weekly, or to refuse to compromise his integrity for social convenience. Yet to him, these vows are sacred, shaping the man he is becoming. Picture him in a small but telling scenario. A friend suggests telling a white lie to smooth over an awkward social moment. He pauses, not to weigh social fallout, but to recall the vow he made to himself about honesty. His response is simple: "No, I'll tell the truth." Others might roll their eyes, but within him, there's a surge of strength, the reward of keeping faith with his inner code. There's even a wry humor in this discipline. Imagine him dragging himself out of bed at dawn to jog through freezing rain, muttering complaints, yet determined because he promised himself he would. When he finishes, the only applause comes from within, a quiet, gnawed version of himself who demanded this commitment. For the Sigma male, these private covenants matter more than social approval. The crowd's recognition fades, but the approval of his own conscience endures forever. 12. The bedrock of being, the strength of self-respect. Self-respect is intangible, yet it is a foundation upon which the Sigma male builds his entire life. Unlike success, which fluctuates with circumstances, self-respect is a constant, an inner certainty of worth that guides every action. It is his backbone, the one resource he refuses to compromise, for without it, everything else becomes hollow. Imagine someone attempting to belittle him in a public setting, throwing out a cutting remark meant to humiliate. Most people might laugh nervously, ignore it, or stew in silence to avoid confrontation. The Sigma male, however, cannot abide such surrender. He will calmly draw a boundary, addressing the insult directly, not because he relishes conflict, but because allowing disrespect feels to him like selling his soul for cheap social comfort. Once self-respect is surrendered, every success, every possession, even relationships, lose their meaning. Think of the sinking heaviness you feel when you act against your own values, agreeing to something you don't believe in, staying quiet when your integrity begged you to speak up. The Sigma male refuses to live with that feeling. For him, self-respect is like the unseen foundation of a house. You may not always notice it, but without it, the whole structure collapses. The humor in this commitment shows in his lifestyle. He would rather live simply, with little money and modest possessions, than be dependent on someone who demeans him. He would sooner walk miles in the rain than accept a ride from someone who disrespects him. To others, this may look like stubborn pride, but for him, it is preservation of the one resource that cannot be replaced. Self-respect, once lost, can rarely be regained in full. This is why he guards it more fiercely than anything else. He would stand entirely alone before he would allow it to be compromised. To the Sigma male, a life stripped of self-respect is not life at all. It is an existence emptied of dignity. Epilogue. The invitation to define your own sacred code. The exploration of the Sigma male's values ultimately leads to a personal challenge for every individual. What do you hold sacred enough that you defend it with your very life? This is not about dramatics or martyrdom, but about conducting an honest audit of your soul. The Sigma male's example shows that the highest treasures in life are not always the ones society celebrates. They're often quiet, subtle, deeply personal. Silence, inner peace, loyalty to a private code, the sanctity of anonymity, or the inviolability of self-respect. These treasures are unconventional, but precisely because of that, they carry the greatest meaning. Yet this journey is not about imitation. It is about self-discovery. Your sacred code may not mirror his. For you, it might be artistic expression, a dedication of family, the pursuit of wisdom, or the courage of adventure. What matters is the courage to identify your non-negotiables, honor them, and protect them against ridicule or misunderstanding. And in all of this, humor must not be forgotten. Life's absurdity demands it. Whether it is laughing at yourself while stubbornly chasing a dream others dismiss, or smiling to the contradictions of modern life, humor keeps your values from becoming rigid dogma.